Dr. K.P. Jitendran. Dr. K.P. Jitendran is the senior most principal scientist at ICAR SIBA and a senior parasitologist among the fisheries research institutions in India. He shared his work on shrimp diseases with special reference to white fecal and EHP at the BAFAC 2020 in Surat.
Good afternoon, everybody. Distinguished delegates and former delegates attending here. And the topic which is assigned to me is shrimp diseases with reference to white fecal syndrome and enterocytosis hepatopeny, or EHP, most popularly known as EHP. And we have been hearing few lectures in the morning and from Dr. Manoj Sharma. And as Dr. Aravandi just now told, he just briefed, I will be able to skip a few slides in the beginning. Now, the outline of my presentation is the current disease scenario in shrimp with a special reference to white WFS and ESP. And we will be talking briefly about the recent advances made on the field of epidemiology, transmission, diagnosis, and prevention and control. Now, if we examine very closely the chronology of shrimp diseases in Indian scenario, these are the diseases from modern days, MBV in early 90s, then followed by WSSV, then IHNV, and HPV in the early 90s and 2000, which when we compare to the diseases in Vanami era, which is after 2009, after the introduction of Vanami in our country, we found a new set of diseases, which is ESP and IMNV. Just now, Dr. Alavandi told about IMNV, though it is a very sporadic occurrence in our country. And a few new strains of WSSV has also been reported in our country. Now, if we closely look at the data based on our work in our institute, as he pointed out, the major challenges here is WSV, ESP, and IMNV. And of course, as explained earlier, some systemic diseases, which is most often associated with the main diseases challenges. We call it as size variation, WFS, white fecal syndrome, RMS, WMS, white muscle syndrome, and Ruschel syndrome, or black gill. Of course, in any way, ESP is an emerging parasitic disease in our country, and is almost the prevalence is much more than the WSSV as in the present days. Now, if we look at the geographic distribution, ESP actually started in the Far East, starting from China, and even recently, the disease has been reported in Bangladesh. And in our country, we got this disease in 2014 onwards. Until date, this is still common. And now recently, the disease has been migrated to South American country like Venezuela. And if we come back to our country, of course, the same is the situation here. The disease was reported in the eastern part of India, starting from Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Odisha, West Bengal. And the recent phenomenon in our Indian scenario is that the disease has migrated to the western side, especially in the coastal belt of Kerala, Maharashtra, Gujarat. And it has percolated to even inland saline areas of Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan. Now, I'll be speaking briefly about the host strains and pathogens. Why we are speaking about this is, of course, there are some, just now somebody told that it is not, it is resistant to indicus and all, but experiment revealed that when we conducted a challenge experiment using ESP, we found that most of the species which is cultured in our country are susceptible hosts, starting from the Vanami, Modon, Indicus, Japonicus, and even Metapenes dobsoni. Now, contrary to this finding, what we found in the natural cases is that most of the wild broodstock shrimp were negative for ESP. And we have examined almost 530 broodstock of different species, what is mentioned here, starting from the Vanami. Vanami, of course, it is the SPF which is collected from the quarantine center. Surprisingly, we got only less than 1% of the shrimp which is belonging to Vanami was found positive for ESP till date. That means we can make a generalized conclusion that wild-caught broodstock of penaeid species are not infected in our country with ESP. That is the scenario right now. Now, coming back to that pathogen, it is a small microsporidium pathogen, which is highly microscopic, less than almost 1 micrometer in size. And peculiarity with this spore is the only stages which is existing outside the host. And at the same time, inside the host, it infected the only one major organ, that is hepatopancreas. So, the infective stage, if we had to deal with this parasite, we had to deal only with the spore. And we cannot do anything with the shrimp, cultured shrimp right now. Now, the major clinical symptoms, as most of you are familiar with this, there is no mortality as such. But the most significant observation in the field is that size variation, a gross size variation, as you can see here. And plus growth retardation is also another feature. And at the advanced stage, even the intestinal content may become white, and which will be subsequently, we call it as white fecal syndrome, which is the fecal matter will be floating in the pond surface. Now coming to the little more closer to the clinical signs, the infected HP will become pale. This is a normal one, and what is seeing the petri dish is the infected one with the pale hepatopancreas, often associated with the secondary bacterial infections, mostly a community of Vibrio species. And in the late phase, this will be showing, the animal will be showing the Lurcher. And microscopically, we can find the hepatopancreas smear with, loaded with parasitic stages and developing stages. And one observation, the most important observation which we found is that all WFS cases are positive for ESP. At the same time, all ESP positive ones were observed to have WFS at least once during the culture cycle. Need not be always present. But at the same time, ESP infected shrimp release lakhs and lakhs of spores in the pond. So, ESP spore number is increasing in every culture and accumulating in the pond. Now coming closer to the life cycle, as all of you know that it's not linked with any other intermediate host. That means a direct life cycle, a shrimp to shrimp. You can complete the life cycle and multiply in the hepatopancreas, produce lakhs and lakhs of the spores. And in the hatchery, the main infection source could be the water, or even as Dr. Manoj Sharma was telling in the morning, that pond-bred broodstock, that is the one main reason for this hatchery build-up, infections in the hatchery, or even polychaete, which is again infectious polychaete, which is acting as only as carrier. Now coming back to the farms, it can again infect through different routes. It can come through cannibalism, through water, and pre-existing spores in the sediments, or even carrier organism. Here only difference is that if the cannibalistic animal can acquire infection within 5 days, if it is through water, it may take 7 days. If it is through the pond sediment, it can take more than 17 days. These are all experimentally done in our lab. Now the infection occur only by the oral ingestions, by contaminated tissue and water or sediment. Hence the spread of this infection is basically in the farm, depends on the farm practice and the history of the disease on the previous culture, and quality of aquaculture input such as feeds and seeds. Now, there was quite a lot of debate about what is the role of polychaete. Polychaete, when it comes to the ESP, we know that it is not acting as an intermediate host. That means it is only acting as a passive carrier. It can ingest the sediments, contaminate with the spores, and carry to the hatchery along as a live feed. And in addition to this thing, other organisms like mud crab, Artemia, and clams cone also act as the carriers. Now, when we conducted studies in Tamil Nadu and Andhra and Kerala, what we found is that polychaetes are known to transmit ESP in shrimp and vice versa. And almost 8% of the polychaetes were found infected or carrying ESP spores in the field. So this 8% could be a potential source in the hatchery while feeding to the broodstock. Now, as I told, it can transmit in both the direction. If it is a shrimp, it can occur within 5 days. Reverse way, it can take more than 15 days. This is the positive case of polychaete. Now, coming to the diagnosis. As far as ESP is concerned, diagnosis is one of the easiest technique which one can do it. As I told you, is in fact only ESP, hepatopancreas. So the source target organ is hepatopancreas. We can test even the intestinal content or even fecal sample. If it is PL, the whole PL can be tested. And very good microscopic techniques are available. Highly specialized staining techniques are available. A routine one is also available. But the most popular one is the PCR, real-time PCR. And even advanced technique like in situ hybridization can also be employed. Now, I just wanted to show this figure to you. What will happen if one PL is infected in the hatchery? And this one PL, if it moves to hatchery, the whole nursery, if the whole nursery will be contaminated. And if one shrimp from nursery is moving to a grow-out pond, which is again, if you are stocking 1 lakh, assume that if one shrimp is producing only 1 lakh spore, finally, what is landing in the grow-out pond is almost 1,000 crore spores in one pond. So that is the magnitude of the spore contamination in the pond. This point I just wanted to highlight to all of you. So this is the level of contamination we are speaking about. This is only an assumption. You know how much PL you are stocking in each pond. So ESP number is increasing in every culture and accumulating in the pond. So what to do about it? What to do about this? Now we have got some laboratory observations that this spores can last almost 1.5 years in water. It can remain viable for 1.5 years in water. At the same time, it is very susceptible to high temperature and very susceptible to low temperature. What I mean to say that freezing at -20 degree can inhibit spore germination. And only if you are just storing for 2 hours at -20 degrees centigrade, the whole spore will be inactivated. At the same time, higher temperature also. And some chemicals are effective, like chlorine, 15% ppm potassium permanganate, and 20% ethanol. These are all we can use as a surface disinfectant or a disinfectant in the hatchery for the implements, tools, net, and etc. The one prerequisite which scientists are advising the people are that pre-treatment of grow-out ponds to increase the pH before stocking. That means I will come to the next slide to explain more about that one. Another is during cultivation, pH should be maintained at 7 to 8 only. Now, why this pH? What is the significance of this pH? At 4 pH, only 5% of the spore will be germinating. At 7 pH, 10% only will be germinating. But if we keep the pH around 12, 90% of the spore will be germinating. This is the science part of it. At the same time, temperature, as I told you, minus 20 is very effective. That is the reason why scientists are advising the farmers to keep the polycystin at a low temperature or deep freezing, minus 20 degrees centigrade for 2 hours. Then all other chemicals I told. Then here, since the pH is, our required pH is 12. And that is the reason why scientists are advising the farmers to treat with, at the time of pond preparation, treating with calcium oxide. That is the science behind it. There are, you know that NACA has advised 6 tons of calcium oxide per hectare. So based on these findings, we can very well say that if you are aiming to stop the ESP in rootstock, use the SPF vanillin and avoid using pond-reared broodstock and avoid use of live feed from the local resources. And hatchery, if you wanted to prevent it, ensure broodstock and hatchery facilities are clean. That means we can do a very strong treatment with alkali, either sodium hydroxide or even potassium hydroxide. Then ensure absence of ESP in live feed again, like Artemia and all. Then screening of seeds and supply of ESP-free seeds to the farmers. At farm level, mainly the treatment, mainly focusing on the calcium oxide and all the things. I'll come to the next slide. This is one experiment which we did it. Of course, this is not in the early part of our experiment. We did some treatment spraying the sodium hydroxide. This work was done at Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh. High concentration of sodium hydroxide, followed by bringing the pH down, again increasing the pH up and all the things. But one problem which we found that we got a lot of complaint from the farmers that thing is a very strong alkali. So handling this alkali is hazardous for the laborers and all the things. So nowadays we are not talking about this one afterwards. Then in case of ESP infection, what we are advising right now is mainly the calcium oxide. You can plow in both the direction, crisscross way plowing, and 1 ton per acre at one time each. And subsequent in the other direction, if you apply 1.5 ton again in the other direction, and subsequently moist with the water, it should generate enough heat plus increase the pH to around 11 pH within almost 12 hours. And this is being practiced by some of our people. And this is a photograph from East Godavari. Again, this is a method which they are applying it, including the dike, they are doing that. Then, if it is already infected pond with ESP, severely infected, there are people who just employ, first do a KMNO4 treatment, reduce the water volume to less than 1 feet, give a KMNO4 treatment, 2 to 5 kg per acre, and followed by usual liming. This is also being practiced by some farm owners who had the ESP infection. This is the method which they are engaging in. Now, what are the other control options? Other control options, as Manohar Sharma in the morning told that the introduction of nursery pond, he had already shown some photographs and all the things. So I'm not going to the details. Plus, addition of lined ponds, that is another one, so that you can reduce the risk, reduce cost, waste collection is easy, and at the same time, real-time monitoring is also very easy. If it is ongoing ESP infection, there is not much to do it, and only the stop feeding, reduce the stocking density, do the partial harvest. But here question is that the number of ESP is possibly increasing in the pond every passing day if you maintain the culture, infected culture in the pond. So this is one, I introduced this slide just for some, often people from Kerala ask that what should I do with if non-drainable ponds. In case of non-drainable pond, as on now, we don't have any immediate solution for that thing, except we will say that fallow for a season, or include crop rotation or a mixed crop for this type of ponds. This summary, the same thing what I have already spoken. Thank you so much.